To quote my wife, who is Chinese from Southeast Asia, after leaving the theater, DC just cannot lie. This is the review of Champions, and I am your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. First up, we have Mr. Taylor first. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good to hear. Merv, how are you, man?
What's happening?
Not much. Yeah, reviewing Shazam, actually. And last but certainly not least, a voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you, man?
I am feeling the power today.
Oh, great. So bring the heat. Today we're going to talk about DC Studios, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can join our ranks. Go to Sakar, sakar.freeforms.net, set up an account, get to know us. And yes, you can join us in our reviews or podcast. Teach us, educate us. We would love it if you do that. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go do that first and then check out our review. DC has started its 2023 in the movie theater with Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Movie critics are lukewarm, can I say that? Yeah, on this movie, but fans, well, they seem to love it so far. Box office-wise, not so much. In this movie, we meet up with Billy Batson and his family, and this time they take on the three daughters of Atlas, a dragon, and apparently a tree. So, what did we make of this movie? We're gonna do 3 rounds. First, our champions will give their quick thoughts, sort of spoiler-free, but not completely. Then we take a deep dive into our likes and dislikes for the film, and we will end up with a rating. And if there's an afterthought, you never know if we discuss that. So let's start. And I'm gonna give the floor to Taylor. Taylor, quickly, short. What did you think of Shazam? Did you enjoy the movie?
Yes, overall, I did enjoy the movie. I liked it. I didn't love it. It was kind of a middle of the road, standard superhero movie. I thought the whole cast, given what they were given and what they were asked to do, they all did a really good job, I thought. And the effects were good. I thought some of the action was good. Again, the word "good," not great for any of it. It's just kind of a middle of the road, fun superhero movie.
Lord Deathman, do you agree with Taylor?
Yep, I tend to agree with Taylor's assessment. Thought it was a really fun family superhero adventure movie. I didn't have high expectations going in because, I've seen the first one and I kind of felt like I knew what I was going to expect, but I was a little surprised in that they managed to ramp up the action, to sort of ramp up the special effects and the spectacle part of it. I certainly felt like I got my money's worth with this particular movie, so no complaints there. Other than some kind of manufactured drama and a little bit of forced humor that seems to be par for the course with superhero movies these days, I would say generally I like the film.
Okay. Merv, last but not least, you saw it as recently as I think. What did you make of it?
Similar vibes. Like but not love. Had a good time watching it. Don't regret seeing it or anything. Didn't absolutely loathe it. Didn't think it was particularly groundbreaking or anything, but so few movies really are. So I just thought it was a good popcorn ride. It was lighthearted and it kept the same aesthetic as the first film, and yeah, it was a good fun standard superhero adventure.
Well, let me be the party pooper then. I actually didn't like it at all. I thought it was boring. I thought it was something I saw a million times before. So the standard superhero movie, I totally agree with you guys. But yeah, and yeah, that extra character where I was supposed, I guess, to be like, yes, that is in the movie. I couldn't care less. Uh, yeah, I actually don't know what the villains were up to. Plant a tree in a baseball stadium or something. I don't know. So I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Most of the time during the big action scenes, I got lost, like I did in Black Adam as well. Uh, yeah, uh, yeah, I'm not a real big fan. I hope this is just part of the DCU that's dying. That's my opinion. But anyway, sorry, Lord Deathman. Please give me your deeper dive into
Sure,
Shazam:
sure.
Fury of the Gods.
I will say that based on your commentary, it was right on that razor's edge of where I could have disliked this movie and felt like, oh my God. But I don't know. I just felt like the veteran actors who are in this film, especially Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu and Jaimin Hansu, they all, are such talented actors and performers that they managed to take the material that's been handed to them and sort of make it entertaining. So I think this film gets a lot of a boost because of just the level of talent that they have on the supporting side. Zachary Levi has I've never really liked his brand of humor. I've always felt it was kind of way too forced and kind of over the top. Um, as far as Shazam as a character, he's always been one of my favorites. I've always loved him since I first started getting into comic books as a character. But in the modern era of telling stories about Shazam, writers feel like they have to lean heavily on the idea that he's a child inside of a grown man's body, and therefore he's obligated to do stupid teenager stuff, and much hilarity is supposed to ensue. But those writers, some of them noteworthy writers with second and third homes, so I really can't say too much about them. They forget the fact that he is supposed to inherit the wisdom of Solomon as a part of the power set, which in earlier Shazam stories made him much more mature when he took on that superhero, persona. But I get it. If you have him being equally as intelligent as someone like Superman, then the two seem redundant. And perhaps that's the problem and why they wanted to kind of lean on this child humor stuff. But I thought the CGI was pretty good. Not, again, not groundbreaking, not next level, but it was suitable for a film of this particular genre. A lot of the drama, though, the dramatic aspects of the film do seem manufactured in terms of the grudge that the Sisters of Atlas have against the Marvel family. Seemed a little on the forced side, but there's a lot of clever trickery and surprises and things like that happened in the film where you're like, you know what, I have to soften a little bit, and that was kind of cool. Um, yeah, so it's a movie where you could just easily say it is middle of the road, but I think it does have a couple of saving graces. There are genuinely warm moments in it. There's genuinely good acting by some of the performers in the movie. There's genuinely, entertaining spectacle in the film. But as for the plot and like the dragon and all of the mechanics of it is a lot of stuff you've already seen before. But yeah, if I don't want to give away my rating yet, but I will say this is a movie that you can't quite love, but you can't quite hate it either. So that's my deep dive into it.
Okay. Merv?
Yeah. Again, like the heartbeat of the film, I think was just like fun and light in flashy sunlit superhero stuff. Nothing too deep. So in that vein, like a lot of the, honestly, plot purposes and things like that, I think are kind of not irrelevant. Not to say they're without criticism, but it's just like, I don't really care. As long as these things are colliding at some point, and it's a big, it's some kind of a fight, if I'm enjoying it, it's fun. And that's kind of the, the vibe going in. So I'm not harshly critiquing it or anything like that. Even when I was watching it, I was surprised how much the humor I actually enjoyed, because I thought, a lot of times in this case it can be very cheesy and corny or too juvenile or just like overly edgy or whatever you want to say, like the toilet humor kind of stuff. But I was surprised how much I laughed at this one. I thought Helen Mirren in the first half was great. I thought I didn't really understand her purpose, but she delivered a lot of dialogue with such passion that I bought into her character as the villain. And then it was like, oh, you're not really the villain. Actually, it's Lucy Liu's character, which I thought she was way more two-dimensional to me. Like, I was kind of disappointed whenever it evolved into her being the big bad, as opposed to Helen Mirren's character kind of being the main focus of antagonism. The character of Freddy, I thought, was borderline the main character in this film. More so than Billy. Like, the Billy development with his, feeling of worried about being abandoned and that sort of thing, like, made sense, but I wish they could have tweaked it a little bit to where it felt like that was the main plot, because I feel like Freddy's plot was much more plot heavy, with the love interest and with tying to the daughters of Atlas or whatever. So I thought Freddy got tons of development, to the point where whenever we get to the end and we bury a certain character, whenever I was like, okay, I guess Freddy's going to take over the mantle of Shazam at this point, and then it's just like, wipe that away. So most of my criticisms are with like the tropes and things like that, and that was one of them. Fake out deaths I hate, especially when it's a fake out death for 2 minutes. But that's like such a trope in superhero stuff and in a lot of stuff anyway. And that's kind of where my critique lies, is like just it's almost too by the numbers at times. But overall, I had a good time, and my lamp just fell over. So if my lighting changed, sorry.
Taylor.
Yeah, well, Merv's lighting is much better now.
Oh, yeah, he really lights up the room now.
But no, actually, I agree with most of what Merv just said. I think most of the humor actually worked for me. I think most of it hit pretty good. It wasn't too much humor. I agree with him about they kind of had a little bit of a storyline of Billy's fear of abandonment and his family coming apart, but they didn't do much with it. I also liked all the other members of the Marvel family, including the adult versions and the kid versions. I would have liked to have seen more of both. I would have liked to have seen more of the kids and more of the other heroes doing more things. But I realized they did not want this to be a 3-hour movie, so they stuck to, like Merv said, the tropes. Bad guys show up, do bad things, big fight, huge sacrifice. We're not ever going to abandon you. Deus Ex Machina, you're back alive. The end. And it worked. Like I said, it worked for what it was as a standard superhero movie. Like I said, I thought all of the actors did a fine job. I thought it was a little weird with the Daughters of Atlas, given the humongous pantheon of villains in the DC universe to choose from. They actually invented these characters for this movie, as opposed to pulling someone out of the comics. At least that's my understanding. I've never heard of them in the comics. And like Murph said, I'm not sure they knew exactly what to do with them. I guess they're mad that the gods' powers were taken away and they were locked away forever, and now they're out, and one of them wants to destroy the Earth by bringing the God realm to Earth, and the other ones just want to get their power back and have their own realm separate, whatever. Okay, Lucy Liu ends up being the big bad, riding around on a wooden dragon. Okay, got it. Superhero movie, big fight. Demons. Now the thing where they all the demons burst out of the roots of the trees, that was kind of cool, all the different creatures. But then they did the how do we stop monsters? Oh, you need unicorns. Well, unicorns are nasty unless you let them taste the rainbow. Give them freaking Skittles. All right, so and then they turn good, and then they just destroy all the monsters, which sort of reminded me a little bit of the scene in Black Adam, where all the dead zombie skeleton people were roaming all over the city, threatening to destroy everything. And it turns out just regular people can just like hit them with a stick, and they turn to dust. And they're not a big deal after all. Ride the unicorns. Now I realized that at that point the other heroes had lost their powers, so they had to give them something to do. So they did the unicorn thing, fight the monsters. That's fine. It all worked out fine that way. There's something else I was going to say, and now I forgot. His sacrifice I thought was handled pretty well. He was scared. His family, they lost their powers. The world was coming crashing down around him. He had a question of faith. Wanted to give up his powers and all that, but he did the hero thing. He overcame his fear, went in there, sacrificed himself for the greater good, and then dies, and they take him to Mount Olympus or wherever. And only a power of a god can save him, and the only one left with any godly powers is Wonder Woman, and she shows up, and that's the obligatory crossover with the rest of the DC EU. She comes in and saves him. Now, in the post-credits scene where Waller's people come and approach him about joining the Justice Society, I thought that was kind of actually a cute scene. I thought how he confused the Justice League and the Justice Society. That was actually pretty funny. But I feel like they need. I mean, it's a really tough situation that DC is in right now, and I understand why Gunn is not saying anything really, but I wish they would. I wish they would just say, "You're not going to see this Shazam again," because we're not going to see this Shazam again. It's not going to happen. But he keeps. It's like we have to keep that thread out there in hopes people will go and see the movie. But at the same time, the marketing for this movie was garbage. All right.
Yeah.
Gunn didn't do anything to market this movie. So it's like, well, I never not said he wouldn't never be in the new DC EU. but we know he's not ever going to be in the new DC EU. So just tell us that. So I understand they're in a really tough situation right now because that hurt, the hardcore comic fans are like, I don't care about that. It's not going to lead to anything. I'm waiting for the new stuff to come. And then at the same time, they're not really pushing their current movies much to get the general audience interested in them when there's so many other superhero things for them to watch. So like I said, they're in a really tough position. And like I said, I think this movie's just going to go down in the books as a, box office total disaster. But in the long run, as just another of the however many movies were in the old DCEU that happened. Some people like them, some people don't, and they are never heard from again. We're not going to see Mr. Mine and what's his face again, even though they keep putting him in the end credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at.
Okay, Lord Duffman, before I gave my in-depth review, be prepared, strap, hold on to your butts, I would say. Lord Duffman, you had a follow-up.
Oh boy, yeah, I did quickly. Just wanted to say, agreed with a lot of what Taylor had to say, and what I was planning to say is now somewhat redundant, so it can be shorter. But if I have to take points away from this movie for anything, it's really about all the broken promises that this movie represents, right? We know this stuff isn't going anywhere. Seeing Wonder Woman was just kind of a jab in the eye as far as cameos go. The two after credit scene with Waller's people, Mr. Mine, none of that is going to happen because they're in the middle of trying to sweep this stuff aside to usher in the fourth iteration of the new live action DCU. And that's really the biggest that's where I feel this movie suffers the most. If you have to have a huge complaint, and also I also wanted to mention that David F. Sandberg, the director of this film, recently was in a piece in the Hollywood Reporter where he really talked about the fact that he was kind of over the fan derision and the sort of tribalism behind the fandom, and that for him, he wasn't coming back to the superhero movie genre anytime soon. And, I think that kind of emboldened a couple of other directors to kind of step forward and say, you know what, I made my money and good luck to the rest of the genre. I just wanted to point that out as a pain point of the kind of tribalism and toxicity that our fandom is known for. We could be digging the grave of this genre by alienating talented people who could be directing these films. But that's all I had to say, Grandmaster. You may begin your barrage.
Well, where to begin? First off, what was so bad about planting a tree in a baseball stadium? There was no threat. Yeah, there were some monsters running around, but they had other monsters to square them all out, and then they turned to dust. What's up with that? Then, indeed, like was mentioned before, the whole first half of the movie, you have the feeling that Helen Mirren character is the big bad, and then it turns out it's her sister, and the other sister. It was quite obvious she was never fully on board. But you have those three sisters. They have a plan, and they constantly say, "Yeah, we're sticking to the plan. We're sticking to the plan." Then they have the apple, and then one says, "No, I'm not going to do it," and no reason is given for it. It's just she wants revenge on people who didn't hurt her, I guess, or something like that. Yeah, I also had constantly the feeling they horseshoed in the wizard for some reason. He was always there just for comic relief for the most part, because what did he actually add to the whole movie? I don't know. Same goes for Wonder Woman, who actually was treated like I would say an object of lust for Billy Batson. Yeah, she saved his life. By the way, I saw that already when they did Batman versus Superman. Same thing. In this case, the hand came out of the grave for comedic effect, but buried and standing up from the grave. Oh, by the way, they didn't do that justice in Justice League anyway, but that's another story. So it's typical DC. They go for things that look cool and throw in some humor because Marvel does that. And but for never for a moment I was invested in the story. I never was invested in the characters, even though I agree the actors were doing a fine job with what they were giving. I mean, I will not critique the acting, but it was a piece of shit from start to finish. I'm sorry, I can't give another word for it. Really, this universe needs to die, and if I really hope that the Flash movie will just reset everything to nothing and zero, and then yeah, they put out Aquaman 2. So I have little to no hope that what they are doing this year will make any sense whatsoever, because I've had now Black Adam, I have had Shazam, Fear of the Gods, and both movies are atrocious. They are a waste of my time, waste of my money, and yeah, I believe that mid-credit scene, it was a direct follow-up on the Peacemaker show, which I am 100% sure that 90% of movie-going people have not seen. So what's the point? Like Taylor said, this Shazam will not show up in the new DCU. It was really a waste of time and money for me, and I thought it was as bad as Black Adam, and I was not a fan of that. To me, the best movie DC has put out in the last 5 years is by far The Batman, and I had issues with that one as well, but at least that was a good movie. And James Gunn, of course, his universe will only start in 2024, 2025, whatever the plan is. Um, but so I cannot blame him for this, but he sold this in his announcement as a good movie. Well, I would like to know what he's been smoking because I need that too. Next time I go see a DC Studios movie. Sorry, I can't make any positive thing about say anything positive besides the acting and some of the jokes that landed with me. But yeah, it didn't make sense. A wooden tree, a wooden dragon, and a wooden staff, and yeah, it was pure nonsense. And of course, superhero movies can be nonsense, supposed to be nonsense, but at least make the nonsense good. And this was not good at all to me personally. But anyway, Taylor, you had a follow up.
Yeah, just some side things. I'm actually a fan of Zachary Levi. I think he's really good. I've been a fan of him since Chuck. But we really needed more Billy Batson in this movie. I mean, like Merv said, this was a Freddy movie. Billy had an unbelievably small amount of screen time as Billy Batson in this movie, which is really strange. I also just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I don't want to be that guy, but y'all know I'm that guy. Wonder Woman was not a cameo. Cameo is a short and completely irrelevant appearance. All right. If Wonder Woman didn't show up, Billy would still be dead. So it's not a cameo. It was relevant. All right. But there were some cameos in this movie. The director actually had a cameo. He was the guy who got thrown by one of the monsters on the street, thrown away. The kid that played Billy Batson in the 1970s Shazam TV show had a cameo. He was a person on the street wearing a red shirt, and he spoke a few words to Shazam during the battle. And lastly, the director's wife had a cameo. She was the woman driving the car playing I Need a Hero on the bridge when he got rescued by Shazam. But by the way, that bridge scene was actually really good. I liked that scene. But those are cameos, completely irrelevant stuff, all right? Professor X in Multiverse of Madness was not a cameo. That's not a cameo. The Green Goblin in No Way Home is not a cameo. He's the freaking main villain. Okay? Stan Lee, all those little Stan Lee appearances, those are cameos. Okay? Stuff that actually matters is not a cameo. As I said, I'm off my horse.
Is that a unicorn or not?
Yes, it's a unicorn.
Okay.
The only cameo in Multiverse of Madness was Bruce Campbell as Pizza Papa. That's a cameo. All right. Freaking Mr. Fantastic is not a cameo.
Okay. Merv?
I do think there was a cameo by Captain Marvel's original name, which was Captain Marvel or whatever it was. Before Shazam, he was actually called Captain Marvel. So when they were shouting out all the names like Low Voltage or whatever, somebody says Captain Marvel, and I clapped at that point. I was like, oh, that's his name. I did the Leo point thing. I know that.
Yeah, I did Chris Evans. I understood that reference. So
I understood that reference.
I got
and
it.
Also in the post-credit scene when he was looking for names for their groups that don't all start with Justice, he said Avengers League. I like that one. He was right.
I actually like it. Marvel referenced DC in the MCU with the Superman thing in Eternals, and now DC has done the same. I think it's courteous, and it shows that they both acknowledge that they have that they exist, and that there's no ill will or so between the companies. I wish the fans would listen to that, by the way.
Yes.
Well, does anyone want to say anything about Shazam Fury of the Gods that hasn't been said?
anything I'll say is like the threads leading out of this film that make you think that he's gonna appear again are doubly frustrating because there's no way after this box office bomb that they're
Exactly.
gonna even entertain the idea of a third Shazam movie or whatever. So it's just it's all unfortunate. It's unfortunate all the way around for everything. But
I
expected.
second that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lord Deathman. Finish your thought.
I just wanted to say I second wholeheartedly what Merv just said, especially when you have such a fantastic character like Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. This series of movies is just going to make it that much longer between the next iteration of when we're actually going to see that character back on the big screen again.
Yep, and I third that. And I just want to point out one other thing that I liked. I actually like how they tied the plot back to the first movie, where the staff was in the first movie, and him breaking the staff at the end of that movie is what released the Daughters of Atlas or whatever onto the world. So I like the way they did that.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. That was one thing that they did right. So I actually agree. Well, then I think it's time to rate this movie, and I'm gonna start off with Murph.
I'll go 7 out of 10. I had a good time. Nothing special, just like a strong like or mediocre like. Mediocre to strong like. Not great, but not bad.
Great. Taylor?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 as a acceptable follow-up to the first movie. If this was just two movies that have no connection to anything else, which it really doesn't, other than a couple of walk-on roles from other characters, it's fine, entertaining pair of movies. And I think they did a pretty good job with this character, which is not an easy character to do in live action on screen. And I thought they did a good job with the whole family thing. One thing I really love is that the foster parents are awesome, all right, because it's such a Hollywood trope that foster parents are terrible and they only take in foster kids to get the money. I've seen that in so many shows and movies, and I love that these foster parents are just awesome. So I give them points for that.
I agree with that, but I do want to point out that it's very odd that his stepmom is about the same age as his stepsister, but that's but apparently that's normal in Hollywood. Lord Deathman, may I have your rating for Shazam: Fury of the Gods?
Well, I want to be where Merv and Taylor are in the 7, 8 more praise sort of side of the spectrum. But because Shazam is such a favorite character of mine, I give this movie a 6. I really do think it's just a travesty what has happened with the DCEU and how Shazam got sort of thrown into the blender as a part of that. But I'm not giving it a negative grade only because I do feel like this is a very entertaining film, especially if you hit that family demographic. I think this is the kind of thing that on a Sunday, mom and dad can take the 2.5 kids or however many you have, take them, sit them down to see this, and you're really going to have a great time. There's just so much stuff that happens in this film that doesn't need like a lot of excruciating level of explanation or for it to all make sense. It's just a really entertaining spectacle. And I think that there's a real attempt to put some heart behind the movie. I think the relationship between the siblings is done fairly well between the actors. They have great chemistry. And as Taylor points out, they don't rely too much on the tropes of the genre that you could have easily leaned on to tell the dramatic side of the family breaking up and the foster parents and all of that kind of stuff. So I give it a solid 6, maybe a 6.5 if the sun is shining a certain way on that particular day. But they certainly have to go back to formula like 20 years from now when we get an opportunity to retell this mythology. I hope somebody's willing to look back and kind of see the lessons that we need to learn from this. Don't do dangles, don't make promises you can't keep. And, humor should be used to break up the tension in a dramatic presentation as far as a comic book movie that I'm concerned. But it shouldn't be an ends on to itself, which I think this movie kind of leans into quite a bit.
Fair enough. Yeah, I rated Black Adam, I think, a 3 out of 10, and I'm going to stick to that with Shazam, Fury of the Gods. To me, it isn't any better than Black Adam. It's not worse either. It has some good things going for it. I may not have pointed that out in my review, but you guys already did that, so why bother? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's just not for me. So 3 out of 10 it is. And well, that will conclude our review for Shazam, Fury of the Gods. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at sakara.freeforums.net. We would love it if you join us. Be on the lookout for our review series of The Mandalorian Season 3. It's running currently at the moment. Pretty soon, we will be talking about Secret Invasion as well. And just peeking on the horizon, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Soon enough. Of course, we will be back with a brand new podcast as well at some point. For now, I thank you all, also on behalf of our champions, and I wish you to be safe and be well. Bye.